I can't breathe. George Floyd said this before his life was choked out of him under the knee of the state. But it has happened before. I can't breathe. Eric Garner said it 11 times while his murder was documented on July 17th, 2014. There is a conspiracy afoot to rob black people of their breath, if not at the hands of the police, then at the hands of politicians, policies, everyday white people in a park, in a neighborhood, at a convenience store, in the supermarket, even in their own home. There is not a place in this country where black people may relax and let down their guard against the mission to destroy them. I'm talking about systemic racism. Remaining silent is not an option. I'm pleading with white people. Stop. Stop assuming black people are up to no good. Stop assuming that you have a right to dismiss the experiences of black people. Stop voting for politicians who aim to disproportionately incarcerate black bodies in the name of law and order. Stop assuming that conformity to white culture is superior and beneficial. Stop saying if only they would comply with law enforcement. There is a conspiracy of whiteness that wants to dismiss atrocities committed against black people as isolated events. White people are willing to label these horrid events as individual acts of racism, but refuse to recognize all of these isolated incidents are connected by a common characteristic: the death of black people at the hands of white people.
Because it was the white man, when they arrived here in the Americas, that slaughtered over 13 million natives. It was the white man that raped their women and daughters. It was the white man that destroyed their culture. It was the white man that took their language. It was the white man that devastated the beauty of what was here prior.
What's up, YouTube family? Welcome back to my space. This is Ivan Srayola. Guys, thank you so much for tuning to watch this episode. I do not take your support for granted. So family, on today's video, we want to talk about white Americans coming up and going against their race, telling them that it is time that they respect black people. It's time they respect black Americans. It's time they accept the atrocities they've caused in black communities in America. It's time they accept about slavery, the Jim Crow, and any other atrocities they've caused the black people. They are coming out and saying they should stop racism, and they are telling their white counterparts it's time that they should be advocates against racism. They are saying it's not the work of black people to talk against racism because they are the people who are getting the racial abuses. So it's time that they work and ensure that they stop, racism in black communities in America. So family, I want you to watch this video as white people call out other white folks against racism in America. Once the series of videos are done, we will get back and do a critical analysis about the same. Let's watch this video together, family.
I can't breathe. George Floyd said this before his life was choked out of him under the knee of the state. But it has happened before. I can't breathe. Eric Garner said it 11 times while his murder was documented on July 17th, 2014. There is a conspiracy afoot to rob black people of their breath, if not at the hands of the police, then at the hands of politicians, policies, everyday white people in a park, in a neighborhood, at a convenience store, in the supermarket, even in their own home. There is not a place in this country where black people may relax and let down their guard against the mission to destroy them. I'm talking about systemic racism. Remaining silent is not an option. I'm pleading with white people. Stop. Stop assuming black people are up to no good. Stop assuming that you have a right to dismiss the experiences of black people. Stop voting for politicians who aim to disproportionately incarcerate black bodies in the name of law and order. Stop assuming that conformity to white culture is superior and beneficial. Stop saying if only they would comply with law enforcement. There is a conspiracy of whiteness that wants to dismiss atrocities committed against black people as isolated events. White people are willing to label these horrid events as individual acts of racism, but refuse to recognize all of these isolated incidents are connected by a common characteristic: the death of black people at the hands of white people, often white people in positions of authority. Of course, this is nothing new. Since its inception, the United States has endeavored to relegate black bodies to the periphery, even if it means extinguishing their lives. Even a cursory survey of history will reveal that black people were brought to these shores to exploit their labor for the selfish ends of capitalism. They were brought here against their will to enrich white landowners and to maintain the white social hierarchy by ensuring that even poor white people would vote, behave, and even fight against their own best interest to maintain this white order. Whiteness continues to conspire against black bodies. The conspiracy colludes around a normative white culture that favors white lives at the expense of black lives. Weak, insecure white leaders are still seeking to abolish black bodies from art, culture, history, life. As recent as President Trump refusing to unveil the official portrait of President Obama. This is how whiteness operates. It conspires to choke out the breath of blackness. It is a conspiracy of whiteness that refuses to acknowledge that racism infects our institutions. It continues to pollute our churches, our government, our judicial, economic, and educational systems. A conspiracy that calls the peaceful protest of Colin Kaepernick disrespectful while simultaneously applauding white folks for carrying guns and waving Confederate flags chanting freedom. The hypocritical irony, this, the only conspiracy white people won't believe, is sadly, tragically true.
What is your opinion on white people being hated by people of color, and do white people have the luxury of having their feelings hurt? In the Americas alone, there is roughly 600 years of oppression against black and indigenous and people of color by white people. White people have built their wealth and empire on the backs of black Americans and the graves of Native Americans. To this day, there are still white people who hold local, state, and federal positions of power whose main focus is to oppress black and indigenous and people of color, and they are succeeding. When black and indigenous and people of color do not like white people, it is because of over 600 years of oppression to their peoples. It is out of self-preservation. Our history as a people have shown them that they must be cautious around us. I do believe white people have the luxury of having hurt feelings, because having prejudice against you, no matter what reason, does hurt. However, us as white people need to understand where that prejudice comes from, because those hurt feelings could very easily turn into racism. Learn up. Do you believe systemic racism exists? Black Americans suffered roughly 250 years of race-based intergenerational chattel slavery, where they were beaten, raped, tortured, cannibalized, and enslaved. Very few black Americans had wealth because of these conditions that were forced upon them. When the 13th Amendment was put in place, which ended race-based intergenerational chattel slavery, it said that indentured servitude and slavery was still acceptable as punishment for crime. Not every state had a prison at the time of the 13th Amendment, but after the 13th Amendment was written into law, every state started investing in prisons, and every state created these laws which were universally known as the Jim Crow laws, which basically made it illegal to be black. So the United States started rounding up black Americans and enslaving them in the prison system, while at the same time destroying their properties and their wealth. It has been roughly 50 years since the end of the most previous Jim Crow era. White Americans had over a 350-year head start while building their wealth and empires off of the backs of black Americans. Ignoring the fact that black Americans make up 38% of the prison population and only make up 13% of the US population, which is an obvious sign of racial discrimination stemming from the Jim Crow era, black Americans never received reparations, so how are we equal? If you are born black in the United States, you are 48% likely to be born into poverty. If you are born white in the United States, you are 7% likely to be born into poverty. That is systemic. Equality does not exist in the United States. The idea that it does was fabricated in order to hide the fact that systemic racism still exists today. Learn up.
It's not the role of black people to be fighting racism. Now, I don't mean that in the white saviour sense. I mean that in the sense that it's not the responsibility of anyone from any oppressed group to be fighting and educating on the discrimination that they're faced with. Women cannot fight sexism without men standing up and fighting the battle too, because men are largely the ones that are perpetrators of it. Disabled people cannot fight ableism on their own. We need able-bodied people to be fighting the battle for us too, because they are the ones ones that largely hold the power and the privilege. Black people shouldn't be expected to be doing the anti-racism work, especially given that it causes them to relive trauma, and it can also put you at risk of further abuse and further situations that can cause more trauma. Yes, as a white woman, I feel a huge responsibility because white people are the people that are largely responsible for it, and we hold a huge amount of privilege. A lot of white people, particularly white people that have black friends, black partners, that are happy to celebrate the culture, that are happy to appropriate the culture, which is so wrong, but they're not happy to support the people in which that culture comes from and originates from. It really irks me when I see white people that will listen to bashment or listen to Afrobeats, that will eat black food, they'll eat their jollof, they'll eat their yard food, they'll go to carnival, but they're quiet on issues that affect black people. Yes, as a white woman that has embraced that culture through growing up around black people, having a black partner, having black friends, yes, I will stand up and I will make my voice heard on these issues because it is my responsibility morally and ethically to do so. I'm really lucky that I've got black people in my life whose voices I've listened to, whose experiences I've listened to, and I've educated myself. I've never relied on them or expected them to educate me. I've done that work and I will continue to do that work because it's important that I show up for them and the wider community. If we only care about the issues that directly impact us and we only speak about those issues, we're never going to make a change in the world. We have to start showing up for people that are from communities that we're not a part of. I acknowledge that I probably feel more confident speaking on this because of the relationships I have, because of the experiences that I have, and that's why it's so important that I use my voice, be it online, be it in the workplace, be it through other forms of activism that I do. I'm going to have children one day, well, hopefully, God willing, and it's really important for me that I show my children that I have advocated for them, that I've stood up for them, that I've used my voice, and so that I can also educate them on their history, you know, things that impact them, especially things like colorism, you know, because my children are going to be mixed race and therefore they're going to have more privilege than darker skinned black people, and I never ever want to hear or know that they've perpetuated colorism. So it's really something that's important to me. Anyone that knows me will know these are things that I have always spoken up on. They're things that I spoke up on in school, in university, that I speak up on in the workplace and wider society at large. I do a lot of activism, a lot of political work, and I constantly ensure that I use the power and privilege that I have to draw attention to these issues. And it shouldn't just be the white people that have black partners or black friends or grew up around black people that speak up about these issues. Everyone should be speaking up about these issues or issues that affect other marginalised groups, because as I said at the start of the video, it is not the responsibility of black people to be doing the emotional and mental labour of fighting racism when they are largely not the ones that are perpetrating it.
This video is for my white brothers and sisters. Do you believe that white privilege exists? Up until recently, I was living off of $900 a month for the last 3 years, and as you'd imagine, I needed government aids to survive. As for my childhood, I moved more times than I care to count, and if I ate that day, it was usually ramen noodles. You and I, as white people, do not see white privilege, especially if we came from the struggle. We are not privileged in the sense that we are handed everything, because although I came from the struggle, if I was black or brown, I would have had to have dealt with racism on top of everything else that I was struggling with. White privilege is not about what you have been given because you are white, it's about what you do not have to endure because you are white. Over 70% of the United States is classified as white, so we are in general treated as human beings. And although being treated like a human being is not a privilege, it's a right, in general, black and indigenous and people of color are not treated with the respect that they deserve. So to those who are being disrespected by a society, when looking at those who are being treated like they're human, it looks a lot like privilege. Hence white privilege.
Because it was the white man, when they arrived here in the Americas, that slaughtered over 13 million natives. It was the white man that raped their women and daughters. It was the white man that destroyed their culture. It was the white man that took their language. It was the white man that devastated the beauty of what was here prior. And standing on the words of Archbishop Desmond Tutu, when the missionaries came to Africa, they had the Bible and we had the land. They said, "Let us pray." We closed our eyes, and when we opened them, we had the Bible and the white man had the land. See, it was the white man that went over to Africa and slaughtered millions, enslaved millions, destroyed their culture, their language, and the beauty that was there prior to us. Because see, I recall it was the white man who enslaved our black brothers and sisters once they took them from Africa here to the Americas. And for over 400 years, it's been the white man that has continued to enslave our black brothers and sisters. In fact, when they were prospering like Black Wall Street, it was the invasion of the white man that destroyed that city. It was the invasion of the white man onto the island of Puerto Rico that devastated the people that lived there. It was the white man that stepped foot into the islands and the nations of Haiti that once again devastated and left it to die. Because the reality is this: everywhere the white man has invaded, everywhere the white man has placed his foot, he has left it destroyed.
Family, I want to start this commentary with a brief history of America. We all know that America is a white suburb built on the graveyard of the Native Americans and the labor of black people in America. We all know how black folks were taken to America forcefully, and were turned into slaves and built anything nice you see in America today. Talk of the Capitol building, talk of the White House. These are all innovations that were done by black people in America. And family, since the days of slavery, the black man has always been disadvantaged. The black man went through Jim Crow era. The black man has been going through a lot of discrimination and racism over the years. And family, the fact that there was slavery has made black people to always been treated as inferior people in America till today. Right now, we've started seeing groups of white people who are woke and understand the very difficult journey that black people have gone through in America, and they're now coming up and saying enough is enough. It's time that we call out what our forefathers did. It's time that we stop racism. It's time that we stop discrimination. It's our responsibility as white people to take care of these people because we've caused a lot of damage in their lives. Family, those are the words of white people right now in America. We are seeing more and more white folks coming up and speaking against racism. They are saying that they've been perpetrators, they've perpetuated racism in black communities in America. And right now they are saying enough is enough with the anti-racism from black people, the anti-racism movement. It's time that they push the movement because they believe if they are the people who are perpetuating racism in black communities, they can as well stop the same. So they are telling black people that it is time that they stand up, and be against racism in America. One of the people in the video gave an example of George Floyd, saying that there is a conspiracy to rob black people of their breath. If not in the hands of police, it's in the hands of politicians and their policies. Many white people have that conspiracy to rob black people of their breath. We've seen a lot of black folks lose their lives under circumstances that are just so weird and bad. Talk of Amadou Diallo, the 1999 incident. Amadou Diallo was just walking in his neighborhood when he was gunned down, shot more than 9 times. An innocent young black man who was not armed, who's not a thief, is not a threat to anyone. He was just walking around in the neighborhood, and he met several bullets passing through his body. This is what this group of white people are against. They are saying that enough is enough, and they want to stop the conspiracy of this white group of people, the white supremacists, who always want to get rid of black people. And a good example is what happened to Amadou Diallo in 1999, and of course George Floyd, I guess in 2020. The white man in the video calls his race to speak up. Remaining silent is not an option. Stop voting for politicians who aim to disproportionately incarcerate black bodies in the name of law and order. We know these politicians, who are there to ensure that black people go through hard times in America, be it economically. It's very, very hard for a black person to get an opportunity where a white man isn't. They could have the same education level, but when it comes to the employment opportunity, many a times they are privileged enough to get these opportunities. Black people in America have a lot of economic anxiety because of systems that have been made against them. And these are some of the things that this group of white people who are calling out their fellow brothers and sisters, they're intentional and saying that this should actually stop. There's a conspiracy of whiteness that want to dismiss atrocities committed against black people as isolated events. You cannot say that the atrocities committed against the black man is nothing. Black people have gone through a lot. And in fact, they should be paid through reparations. This is about justice. You're not just paying them and telling them sorry as a token of appreciation. This is now justice over the atrocities black people have been going through in America all these years. It's prudent. It's only sensical if black people are paid. It would be unfair for black people to go through all of what they've gone through and they're getting nothing in return. Family, somebody would say, and many white people who are not like the ones in the video, because there's this group of white people who are very woke and are speaking against any form of discrimination for the black man. There's this other group of white men and women who always tell people that they cannot pay you and they did not harm you in any way. You are not slaves. The people who are supposed to be paid were dead already. Family, let me tell you one thing. The group of young men and women that are alive today are going through a lot of these difficulties because of the harm, because of slavery. During the days of slavery, black men and women were taken as inferiors, and that is what is continuing, what is still being perpetuated in black communities in America. That's why there is a lot of racism today, because of slavery. So there's no way you'll say that the descendants of the enslaved Africans are not being affected and they do not deserve reparations. That is a lie. They proceed to say in the video that black people shouldn't be left to do anti-racism work, especially given that it causes them trauma. They are saying that it's time they take up the role to push anti-racism. That is not the role of black people. They are the ones who've been committing racism, and it's time they take, the lead of being anti-racist. And I just want to commend some of the white people who always come up and talk about this ill very, very well. Somebody like Tim Wise, he's been an anti-racist advocate for the very longest time. White people are largely responsible and hold a huge amount of privilege. It saddens me, to see white people listen to Afrobeats. These are not my words, the words of the lady in the video. It saddens her to see white people listen to Afrobeats, eat black food, go to carnival, but are quiet when it comes to issues affecting black people. Family, there is no way you'll enjoy any other things that are coming from black folks, but you do not want to talk about the atrocities you've caused them. You do not want to call out your brothers and sisters to stop being to stop being discriminatory, to black folks. That is very, very wrong, family. Fam, let me know in the comment section down below what you think about this special group of white folks who are coming out and calling out their people. Like the video so that it can be recommended to other YouTube users, and I'd be very, very grateful. The goal of the channel has always been to talk about black history, black empowerment, and tell the black stories the black way, because if we give the supremists an opportunity to tell our stories, we know what happens. Guys, thank you so much. We are currently on the road to 50,000 subscribers. Kindly take your time and subscribe to the channel, and let us continue growing together. Thank you, and see you all in our next episode. Goodbye for now.